Okay, Mr. Cañizares, thank you very much for your time and that you agree to speak with us today. My name is Natalia, and here is my colleague Nadia, and we just started our YouTube channel, and we want to educate people about renewable energy. And we are really grateful for your time that you agreed to talk with us, and maybe all together we can put some light on the renewable energy and to inspire someone to see the future in this energy. And we are here, it's very interesting because we are here now 2 continents and 3 countries. I'm in Germany and Nadia in UK and you in Canada, right?
Correct.
Thank you. And TESUP is, maybe you have seen already in my email that TESUP is a producer of household wind turbines and flexible solar panels. And Nadia can tell you more because she's working with TESUP already 2 years. So I give floor to Nadia.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Mr. Cañizares. Am I right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. TESUP is manufacturer of wind turbines and flexible solar panels. Also, we deliver domestic wind turbines locally in 30 countries and with additional equipment that is wind charge controllers and inverters, just to make as simplest as can be for end users to make this switch to renewable energy as fast and easiest as it's possible for now. Your works with grid and also the application about smart residential load simulator is quite interesting and probably very useful for people to understand better how they can implement wind turbines to their homes and how the whole system will generate energy and make them independent users. Could you please tell us more about how you see particularly wind turbines in this switch for now for people, and taking into account all the circumstances as war and other factors that make it faster?
Sure. My view is, at least at the residential level, from my experience with this in this area, is that I don't see a lot of potential for wind turbines within the residential sector. I think they make more sense in a, if you will, in a farm structure or farm setting or a community setting. But at the home level, I think solar has a lot of potential, but from all our work, we don't see wind playing a major role in this. And in fact, that's what how the market has developed, right? At least
Why?
So basically, we have, from my studies, we see that solar provides all what solar plus battery provides what you need.
As far as I know, that solar together with wind turbine is the best decision, because when you have sun, you do not have wind.
Sure, but when you don't have sun, you have batteries. Yeah.
And do you think that location can have influence on this issue? Like, for example, there are different countries. There are countries like where there are more wind, and there are countries with more sun. So maybe location also influence.
Yeah, the problem with wind is that you need a certain height for the wind to make more sense, and that would require special permits in many areas. So it's typically not in the residential sector. It would be a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm. But you are telling that with a farm is good. Why?
Yeah, in context of a community where you have a space, you can put a tower that is, so high.
And if you take, for example, several houses, like on the street.
Yes, I said in the residential sector, the problem is where you're going to locate them, right? There are height limitations of what you can build and how high you can go.
Probably the microgrid also might be helpful for this solution.
Yes, in that context, yes, it makes a lot of sense.
But do you think that only big scale wind turbines will make the big change, or still there's space for domestic wind turbines locally to make impact?
In my studies, no, I don't see domestic wind turbines playing a major role. Yeah.
And what are you?
Okay.
In the context of a microgrid in certain particular applications, for example, in the north, they are very useful. Northern Canada, where there's a lot of wind and sun is limited, makes sense. I mean, we have done a lot of those studies, and wind does play a role. But in residential sectors, like around this area, doesn't really make sense, yeah, compared to sun.
So wind is more productive, more efficient than sun, or vice versa?
It's an issue of economics, technology, output. So it only makes sense when you have, certain concentration, certain heights, where there's no restrictions for that type of problem of installing wind turbines, right?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot install a wind turbine at the top of my house because it would be a challenge, yeah. To give you an example, here in North America, that would be a problem, yeah. And in fact, that's what the market shows, right?
And do you have solar panels on your house?
Not on mine, but it's in this area, still it's not cost effective. Yeah, electricity is relatively cheap here. Yeah.
But do you see But do you see maybe the tendency to see renewable energy as a proper source of energy, because the world is changing? And for example, I know that now in Netherlands, people try to switch to renewable energy totally. Even in school, they educate kids how to produce energy, how to make it from sun and from wind, because it's really future. And
but not in the residential sector, not all of the residential sector. I mean, renewable wind makes a lot of sense from the point of view of an integrated, a community, and a relatively large load related associated with it, where it's justified to put a big tower and connect it to the grid, right? But from the residential point of view, I mean, at least in North America, it's all about solar. Yeah, I haven't seen any here of wind turbines at home. Yeah, they present many challenges: permissions, permits, construction.
Do you think that it will be changed in future if let's say councils and governments put more attention to this issue and they support the development of renewables?
Yeah, sure, but not at the residential. Wind at the residential level, I don't see it. Solar is certainly a lot of support for that. Makes sense economically in the long term, and that's what you see in the market, right? People installing a lot of solar.
Yeah.
Wind is limited to certain areas, certain regions, certain applications.
Yeah, that's true. There was some days in the UK that people were forced to switch off all wind turbines because it was very windy day and the grid will not handle all the load from the wind turbines and additional sources. So it's still impactful, probably, as your studies about grid and frequency regulations and residential energy management, you know that it's still under development and under serious science approach. So new technologies probably also needed for both grid, wind turbines, solar, just to make it more effective.
As I said, yeah, I see the role of wind and solar playing its role in different applications, but I'm specifically talking about the residential sector.
I see.
It's a lot easier to install a panel than installing a wind turbine. You obtain a lot more energy out of the panels, you have more space, it's cheaper, it's relatively easy from the point of view of construction because you need permits.
Yeah, that's true, but taking into account that 10 years ago, the technology of solar panels wasn't that as now. So we might think that the same will be with wind turbines.
I don't see wind technology getting any better than what it is already. And it makes more sense concentrated, yeah. The technology makes more sense from the point of view of big engines. That's what is happening, right? Wind turbines are getting bigger and more energy, more power per turbine, right? The residential sector will be too small for what you can put in a rooftop or in a house to make any significant difference. Right?
That's really interesting.
And you told that you find this in your study, and how did you come to this conclusion? Maybe you can tell about
because of what you can find in the market, and these wind turbines don't produce enough energy compared to what you can get from solar.
Even if it's 5 kilowatt wind turbine and you have enough space, you can also on
5 kilowatt turbine. Keep in mind, a 5 kilowatt turbine is going to be a construction challenge. It's not that light. You will need a tower to put it on. You cannot just put it on top of your rooftop. You need a space for that. You need a high tower. Then you have to get permit to construct, to build on top.
Our customers do like that, yeah, and that's probably as the start. It takes some efforts to make this, but in the long run,
Let me tell you, I wouldn't get a permit in my place to put a turbine of 5 kilowatts. I wouldn't be able to convince the city to let me do that.
why?
Because it's a challenge. It's a height limitation. It's a construction limitation, a space limitation. I cannot put it on top of my rooftop because that would be a major cost and it would be too high. Wouldn't be allowed. The permits won't allow me to do that.
But you can
Even
put a solar panel.
Oh, that's relatively easy because you put it on top of your rooftop, and it's not a major challenge. So construction-wise and permit-wise, it's not a major challenge. Actually, from the point of view of construction, it's not. From the point of view integrating to the grid, it could be, depending on the utility you are dealing with.
Well, why do you think this tendency to add wind to solar is increasing?
Because it makes sense from an integrated point of view, but not from the residential. Okay? Because of the challenges, construction challenges, size, height, weight.
I agree with you that especially horizontal wind turbines, the construction will be different. Also, there are vertical wind turbines. They also put it on your house, on your roof. Our customers, like let's say, they put on chimney or other place on the roof, and it doesn't take so much space. In still make some part of your energy bills lower. So do you think this makes sense if it's vertical wind turbine?
I've seen vertical turbines. You have a site in which we work with vertical wind turbines. And as I said, from the residential point of view, it doesn't make sense. You need a tower, right? You need certain heights.
No, the tower isn't big. The tower is like less than meters. So you don't.
I know each of these technologies doesn't make sense unless new technologies have come in, but I haven't seen it, and I don't see a market for that compared to solar. I mean, I don't see a market. Yeah, solar plus batteries does the job, and given the cost and prices, makes sense. Anyway, that's my opinion.
And do you believe in renewable energy in the future?
The future, I have to see the technology costs, issues with construction, permits. But at this point, it doesn't.
But you are, as I have read from your profile, you are a director of the Institute for Sustainable Energy.
We are, yeah.
And what is the main aim of your institute? What are you working on now?
We do multiple things related to sustainable energy, including renewables. With renewables, different aspects of renewable batteries, policies, social issues, microgrids, other forms of energy, hydrogen, etc. Yeah, thermal energy systems.
So altogether, it will be more efficient. And can it change the rest fossil fuels that, in comparison to renewable, using all renewables to exchange for?
Perfect sense. That's what we work on. Yeah, electrical transportation, all of those aspects. Yeah.
Okay, and what would you recommend still for domestic wind turbines? If like there is still some future with new technologies, what would your first and main recommendation for manufacturers and people who are interested in this?
I wouldn't be able to tell you because I haven't studied that particular problem, right? And what would the technology have to be, or what kind of characteristics it would have to have? I cannot tell you. I haven't studied that problem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dalia, do you have any questions?
It's interesting because Mr. Cañizares is on another continent, and I just recently moved to Germany, and I see that here people are very enthusiastic about renewable energy, that everybody is talking about it, especially Netherlands. I have a lot of friends there, and it's interesting for me how is on your part of the world in Canada.
Well, there's very active space here as well. Maybe not as much as Europe,
But why do you think not so much as in
Cost
Europe?
of electricity here is much lower, and at least in this region, pollution from electrical systems is much lower.
Because you have more lands and maybe.
We have more renewables in general, including hydro. So, for example, the production of pollutants from electrical systems here is very low. To Europe, the war problem right now is the use of gas for electricity, which is not as that significant as it is in Europe. And the other problem is the gas for heating, right? So which is being replaced by electrical systems. We are not afraid of nuclear, so there's a lot of nuclear power, like in France, in this part of Canada and Ontario. So
Waterloo is on Ontario.
yeah, the systems in Canada change from province to province. There are significant differences between ourselves and our province next door, Quebec, which is mostly hydro. In our case, it's mostly nuclear, but there's a lot of interest. So there's a lot of support and initiatives and incentives for introducing renewables.
So if you compare Europe and Canada, you will tell that in Europe it's much more, because here I think natural resources are more.
Yeah,
Already lack.
Yeah, the issue with Europe is that, well, not only the resources, but I believe that the governments are more interested in integration of renewables and electrification of transportation than it is here, because the pollution issues are more significant there. And the other problem is that electricity costs here are much lower than they are in Europe. So it makes more sense.
So you think that Canada and USA on the same level, or maybe USA more, maybe Canada?
No, it depends. It depends on where you are in North America. Yeah, in some parts of the U.S., the issue of renewables, there's a lot of interest on it, but there's also interest in a lot of challenges, political challenges and policy challenges that limit their general deployment. For example, you compare California with, I don't know, Ohio or Texas. There are significant differences.
But why do you think the policy of governments are so full of restrictions and it's so difficult to get all those permits?
Depends on where you are. Yeah, as I said, depends on where you are. For example, in California, every new house is mandated to have a solar panel. So it's a policy decision, right? Political decision. Now you cannot build a house without a solar panel now. But whereas in Texas, they don't care about that. In Arizona, when people are deploying solar panels because there's a lot of sun resources, people are getting penalized for that because they are disconnecting from the grid, and the grid is basically losing customers. So now they have to pay a fee for connection fees. So all of those issues are challenging.
Is the grid issues in California much better than other regions? They made more work or paid more attention to the development of the grid, or the users should be off grid and having their batteries. Do you know how it works there?
I don't see a future for off grid because it's an issue of reliability. So in certain applications, maybe, but in general, you want to be connected to the grid because there's a lot of assets there, a lot of investment, trillions of dollars you cannot ignore. So the challenge is how you're going to make these two work together, right?
And I know that, for example, in UK, it's already like almost 50% are using renewable energy. And if to name a percentage in Canada, in US, what would be for now? And
it changes from location to location. For example, the renewables in Ontario, well, in Quebec is 90% renewables.
In Quebec, 90.
Yeah, because mostly hydro. There's a lot of hydro electricity.
And solar. And do they have wind turbines?
No, not a lot of wind and solar. Although they are trying to introduce wind to reduce the use of or regulate the use of water, because that could be a challenge. So
still there are some places.
I cannot give you a great general answer. It really depends on the location. Yeah.
And maybe in 10 years, how do you see the future of renewable energy in Europe and in US?
If we have a mandate here in Canada about 2050 net zero, so renewables are going to have to be part of the system, of the energy system. And there's no question about it. And renewables is talking about wind, hydro, solar, thermal. All of those are going to basically mixed up and work together to try to get rid of any emissions, right? That's the objective, including transportation and all of this, which is making the electrical system even bigger. So yeah, they're going to play a major role. 100% renewable sources, yeah.
So what would you recommend to produce to inspire people to in residential sector to use? Just solar panels, or maybe you have some ideas? What?
At this point, solar panels and batteries make perfect sense, yeah. But depends on the cost, because if you have a renewable source, a renewable grid, and the cost of electricity are relatively low, then why do it, right? And then you have a special need for that. So you pay your taxes, you pay your bills, so the government or the utilities can take care of that issue, right? Which is what is happening around here. But in other places, for example, in Arizona, it makes a lot of sense to have your solar panel because electricity is expensive. You have a lot of sun, you have a battery to it, so then the current cost makes sense.
So if
But in other places, that doesn't make sense. Right? It's very dependent on the location and the policies. There's no general answer, yeah. In general, you can say that renewables are going to have to be part of the system to get rid of emissions, right? There's no question about it. Now, how exactly that's going to happen, whether it's wind, solar, hydro, batteries, it will change from location to location. And policies, right?
Location policies. So in the end, like if we have perfect location, very windy country, is there still hope from your point of view for wind turbines in residential sector? If location is perfect and all permits are easy.
The technologies that are there, I don't see a major role. Residential wind turbines playing a major role.
You mean that they can be, but they will not play the major role?
Well, they have to compete with solar, right? And at this point, I don't see that competition happening yet, for many reasons, as I explained already.
Okay, but if you have a wind turbine and if you have a solar and if you have a battery, so maybe it can be the best solution and you will not depend from...
It makes perfect sense in microgrids, in grids. That's exactly what people are doing. Right? But in the specific residential sector, hasn't happened. And I don't see that happening. With solar becoming cheaper, with batteries becoming cheaper.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Nadia, you have some more questions.
Maybe it's not the answer you wanted, but that's how I see it.
It's interesting to know the more opinions we have because we work on education. Now it's our purpose to get information and to use it for the better, to improve.
Yeah, to see the clear picture of the future for us all. And it's really interesting to know that it depends on the location, and we can use either solar or wind or hydro, and all together it will make it happen to lower emissions, and that's probably our aim for all of us.
It's good objective, yeah. Makes sense, yeah.
I think that we just need to proceed our work hard and make it happen. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. Have a nice day.
You too. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.